made a decision.
Well, Mike got me thinking about both a Pico and an Alpha, and it's exactly the last thing I needed is double trouble.
So you did it anyways, right?
It's exactly the thing he got you into then.
Yes, it's all his fault. I hope he gets a cut.
Well, he gets a vibrant Eigenharps community.
Oh, right. It's probably going to be summer or later before I actually get the instruments.
The Pico, you should have it quite soon, though.
Oh, that's right.
Yes,
That's
because
right.
the Pico is just sitting there in stock. We don't have to build it. So the Alpha, we're looking for some new suppliers for some of the primary parts there. So yes, that will be a while.
So, can you tell me how are the three virtual instruments actually constructed inside the Eigenharp? In other words, like there's the piano, the cello, and
there's two of
the
me.
woodwind. And so, how are they actually built up? How are they actually created?
I was there. I had that too, Mike, just before. It was like two of me, and now it's two of you. It's like
Yeah.
Back to one of them.
the Google Plus likes to clone stuff. I think they're actually creating a parallel universe of ourselves. Just taking a copy of us. Yeah.
It's like Another Earth. We finally watched that movie the other night.
Is it any good?
I think I liked it. It's intense. It's slow and thoughtful, so I think a lot of people can't deal with that.
What movie is that?
Another Earth.
It's been sitting in my collection for a while, and each time, no, I'm not up for that tonight. I'll fall asleep. It's like,
Yeah, you don't want to be having a nice drink in front of it, or you won't finish it.
right, yeah. Since we have very intense days at the moment, evenings we usually already fall asleep. When we're watching The Walking Dead, we already fall asleep.
Yeah, it's bad when the adventure films kill you. So I missed a little bit of that.
Yeah.
You were talking about the piano sound, or Jeff?
How are the virtual instruments created in
Well, things are just starting up again. I can't show you right now. So basically, the way it is set up is that I'm actually contemplating quitting EigenD again and just using EigenD 2 to show it, because it's maybe gonna be clearer. You know what? I'm gonna first use the reference manual.
I think that means we have to talk amongst ourselves.
No. I'll be right back. I'm just here. I'm just going to use the manual. The manual is probably going to be clearer. Just going to open it up here.
I guess where I was going with that is like at a very basic level.
Yes.
I was trying to figure out how come the virtual instruments that are in my Core Gem 3, some of them, there are like thousands of them, and some of those, 10% of them, are just stunningly realistic, especially the grand pianos and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, okay, so the Eigenharp has 3 virtual instruments, and the virtual instruments seem to be so well done, and I was just trying to get a feeling for why are they so realistic, as opposed to just going out and getting a sound wave file and or some of the plug-in native instruments or virtual instruments that don't seem to have the same.
They're modeled.
Oh, the modeled ones. That's the one you're talking about? You're not talking about...
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I didn't get that. Well, they're programmed basically specifically for the Eigenharp. So they're written in C code, and each cfilter instrument basically exposes all the meaningful performance parameters, and you can connect them to the actual controls on the Eigenharp, meaning that you can get to fine-tune every little thing about it.
Gert, can I take a try at that?
Go ahead. You're probably much better than me doing that.
Well, so if you are playing something, and I think Korgs are sample-based, right?
Yeah.
So if you're playing a sample-based thing, your level of control over that instrument is you either play a sample or you don't, and maybe you filter it. And the filters do a good job. Like a lot of saxophone things are the samples are all overblown with lots of high harmonics in it, and then they filter it down. And as you push harder or blow harder, you remove the filter, so it sounds like the thing's responding like a saxophone. And Korg has some really, really good technology there. But a model synth doesn't start from samples. It starts from a mathematical model of the instrument.
Really?
So, for example, in the cello, it says, I'm going to create a model of a slip stick thing. In other words, something rubbing against a string or a stick. And then you change parameters for, how thick is the string, how long is the string, where are you pushing on the string, how hard are you pushing on the string. And then the model gives you the waveform that would occur if you were actually doing that to a string. So that gives you a lot more direct and normal control over an instrument. Does that make sense?
Oh, it does, yeah. It's
So,
very interesting because it really is entirely a mathematical programming construct rather than layering different wave files and loops and modulation.
right. It's just a different approach. And there are hardware physical modeling synths. So the Yamaha VL70 is one. It's fairly inexpensive. The Yamaha VL1, which is hard to find, is quite good. I think they also have a physical modeling plugin. I think Korg has some physical models. AAS, Applied Acoustics, is all physical modeling. The Pianotech is a physically modeled piano.
Huh. But, so in theory, if one had enough programmers, they could all get to work on, an Eigenharp platform, and they could produce literally hundreds of different instruments if they had the time and the money.
Yeah, nothing that I said is specific to the Eigenharp. It just happens that they've adopted a bunch of physical models, and they work well with that controller. And it's not so much coding. The cello model, if you actually look at the code, it's been around for, like the slipstick physical models have been around for a decade. It's computing power. So samples are cheap, right? Like you just play it, and you play as many as you want, and the limiting factor is
Memory.
Storing the samples and bandwidth for getting them off the disk or out of memory. Physical models, the constraint is processing the model.
Oh.
Gert?
I totally
Any
agree.
other? Yeah, okay.
Wow. So really, there could be all of these modeled instruments that would be native to the Eigenharp if you had the programmers and the time, the money to dedicate to that.
And that's where it gets very interesting. In fact, that EigenD is open source now since a year, and that we're putting a lot of very active effort into actually helping developers getting started now with building what we call agents, which is basically like a plugin for EigenD. So we had our developers conference a couple of weeks ago, and people, in a couple of hours built their first agents there and are continuing now. And we just finished preparing all the media and videos from that conference that we're going to put online. And because our hope indeed is that people will start. There is a whole bunch of papers and algorithms that have been written and researched over the past few decades that are all very good. And they've been kind of hidden behind MIDI, not really been exposed to high resolution performance, electronic performance. while EigenD provides that that platform basically where you can have that high resolution performance get straight into those algorithms that are tried and tested and proven and whatnot. And the agents provide an encapsulation model there that allows developers to just develop them, and then people to hook them up in their own setup and share them and build their own instruments even with them. You could have combine them together and create effect agents that modify other physical models. And so our there's a ladder filter already built in, for example, in EigenD, which is based on hey Dragica, which is based on a published paper. But it only became possible to implement that in real time, and definitely when polyphony comes into play quite recently. So yeah, I do think that there's a very, very exciting future ahead with people writing and their own agents doing a whole bunch of stuff.
So in theory, that could actually happen as a developmental future for Eigenharp, that all of these modeled instruments could start appearing and being shared.
Yes.
Well, you're going to see virtual analog instruments immediately, because that's a lot of the people who are doing the open source are interested in analog type synthesis or subtractive synthesis, really. And so there's already a bunch of agents around oscillators and things like that that are really oscillator models, if you think about it that way. And I think you're going to see a lot of progress there. So if you were the kind of person who might go buy a Moog or a real modular synth, you basically get a free one by buying any version of Eigenharp.
And what can agents be?
Everything, anything you want. Basically, an agent, the way you have to represent, imagine it is basically a shell that has a certain behaviors and openings that accept data and openings that provide data. And whatever you do in there is up to you. And it's been constructed in such a way that it can accept all the data coming from the Eigenharp in very high resolution and bandwidth, so that this can bleed straight into physical models or other performance instruments. But it can even be, you could write an agent, one that I quickly hacked together after a Google Plus thread last week, was an agent that writes tablature when you press the keys on the Eigenharp, and it spits it out in HTML. So, someone else was working on an agent that receives MIDI notes and lights the keys up on the Eigenharp based on the MIDI notes that it receives, so that you can kind of play along. It's open to whatever you can imagine, basically, and the processing power available.
And so, how much programming? What kind of programming knowledge does one have to do that?
Well, there are various levels. I'd say it's not for someone that just starts out programming, not at all. The upside, though, is that the most difficult part, the thing where people often get in a lot of trouble in programming is multi-threaded programming, meaning if you've got several things going on at the same time. That has been kind of formalized in the programming model for Eigenharp, so you can't really make any mistakes there, not big ones, unless you start dropping down the level. But if you take the example that we developed for the developers conference, once you know how to use the Python and the C++ programming languages, it should be fairly straightforward to work from that. But of course, you have to know how to talk the languages.
Now, Gert, I want to build on that a bit, because I think we're fibbing a bit here. There's two layers of programming. Because after all, people call programming synth sounds programming the synth.
Yes, I'm just going to get programming. There also,
programming agents. I'm not about to launch off onto that. I could really screw that up and never succeed. But assembling agents in something like Workbench into novel synthesizers, because the agents are fairly small, shouldn't be. It should be quite readily possible mid-year or maybe towards the end of the year when it's a little more mature. Workbench, that is.
Well, it's we're aiming for very soon. We've been continuing.
Well, great.
Yeah, we've been continuing the drive for the 2.0 release. We've been continuing this steady crunch mode. So we're hoping to get into testing actually quite soon. We've been making quite a number of important changes after the developer conference. But the most important part there is, I think, will probably come in 2.1, so not 2.0, which is the ability to share and import and export what we call rigs. So a rig is like a group of agents. Let's say that you create. You have 3 oscillators and a filter and an envelope generator, basic synth, subtractive synth, and you want to call this subtractive synth. And you have assembled that. You figured out how to connect them all together and to expose these to the Eigenharp. Then you can package them up into something we call a rig. And these rigs have been designed to be basically as an agent. So the first level of, as Mike says, as a programming agent is assembling agents so that they work together and then packaging them up. And you could send that to someone and say, okay, here's that rig that I just created, which he can just put into his setup also and hook up. And you can get a long way with that because creating a number of oscillators and filtering those, or physical models that you run through some effects, or having a sequencer being connected to, I don't know, it can be anything, can create very, very interesting possibilities.
Yeah, I think this is a similar model to what MaxMSP does. There's not many people who write MaxMSP externals, but there's a lot of people who write patches. So there is still a lot of people who write externals, but the externals you have to write in Java or C++. This is more complicated. And then other people can take this stuff and integrate it into their patches and have the patches, distribute the patches, which I think is very interesting because so you can do a lot of things on the workbench level, and some people who like to program can do agents.
Yes.
So is there a place where these agents and stuff is going to be shared, or?
Yes, we're going to have a section on the website that allows you to easily find and share them.
And these rigs are not unlike libraries of patches that you would have bought for an old hardware synthesizer. Did you buy programs for your Korg, or are you just using the factory presets?
I've done both, actually.
So what the second thing that we talked about is not unlike acquiring a set of third-party patches for a hardware synth.
Right, you just load them.
Yes. And the nice thing is that you can actually kind of pull them apart and modify the internals also and add to it, or even take pieces of it and use it in stuff that you're building. So.
Boy, it's going to be an amazing world in the next 10 years.
Oh yes, I'm very excited to see where this is going now. It's, since
What?
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead, Mike.
Well, I was just going to change subjects and ask Dragica about her planetarium idea. I thought that was great.
What was that? I didn't see that. I was little bit out of the loop for the past few days.
On Friday, I was in Berlin. There is a big planetarium, the SAS Planetarium, and they had the show which was called Music of the Spheres, which is, this old idea that the planets are on spheres, on crystal spheres, and every sphere has its own music, the old Greek stuff. And Mike Oldfield has written some music piece with this theme, and they had a multimedia show in the planetarium with lasers and the big dome was having some images, and they had some slide-like stuff. It was multimedia, and it was very interesting. And I thought it definitely lacked some Eigenharps.
Yeah, like that would be a marvelous venue. I don't know if you've seen that show. It's been around since Tubular Bells.
No.
But it's lived, I guess, very well. I mean, you liked it, right? And the thing about a planetarium is it's a very interesting environment. It would be perfect for blinking light shows, right?
I mean, I give it. It's a little bit cheesy, but yeah.
Well,
No,
you don't have to do the whole cheesy thing. I mean, just because that one's a bit dated and a bit over the top, I mean, it could be done tastefully.
Yeah.
Just borrow the set from Star Trek.
Well, you might find you could, like our planetarium here in Toronto, I think it's actually been demolished, but it just went out of business. They couldn't make any money. They actually turned it into a daycare center for years. So, if we end up doing our performance thing in some place that has a planetarium, it might be an interesting venue to grab.
Definitely, yes. I can remember actually from when I was even a teenager, the planetarium here in Brussels was already kind of going downhill, struggling to keep up. Kind of interesting to see where it went now, what it's turned into.
The other thing I noticed, somebody was cycling it around on Google, is Google is going to do a Performing Arts Day in June.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I wonder if it's worth trying to put something together for that.
I think definitely, yeah. Let me just get back for Jeff to this, so that he sees visually what we've been talking about. Can you see this, Jeff?
Well, my main large screen, nothing is showing up on it, and I'm not sure why.
Can you try clicking on that square that you see to the right, where you see that picture?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't help?
No.
Huh. Okay, well, then I can't show you. Maybe try reconnecting. We've all connected twice and being de-doubled.
How do you connect twice?
You just disconnect and reconnect. Just quit your browser and start again. But if you're not comfortable, then don't do it.
Well, let's see. I'll try it.
Yeah. I was just going to show the inside of the rig and show him how this is connected up.
Yeah.
You're still there, by the way. We can see you, so Jeff. Yeah.
I don't know.
If you're not comfortable not doing this now and fear not being able to get back, then that's okay.
Right. It's an ordeal getting on each time. I start 15 minutes early.
Well, that's why you're always here at the first.
Yeah, that's right. I've been here since 6 a.m.
Well, you got to find one way that works and then just write it down. That's I've got this whole thing that I have to set up, and I know I have to do that. So I have to start also at 20 to 4 here, so 20 minutes early to get it all set up.
So here's another interesting observation that just crossed my mind when Jeff flashed up on the big screen. There aren't a whole lot of people in the world who own Eigenharps as a percentage of the population, and there aren't a whole lot of people who live in log buildings. But there's now at least 2 people who live in log buildings who will own Eigenharps.
And I've got a wooden attic.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's right.
So probably the high tech of the Eigenharp and the log building, the, let's say, rather traditional way of building with logs cancels each other out?
Oh no, they complement each other wonderfully.
Yeah.
And Dragica, you'll have to change where you live now.
Yeah,
you have to incorporate some wood
tried to
somewhere.
find a log building somewhere in Switzerland,
Yes.
which will be very, very hard. Maybe a chalet, if I'm lucky.
Yeah. Well, you can create one inside your existing building. It's like a chalet.
We'll start
inside.
calling you Heidi.
Heidi Harp.
If you do that, I will come in braids next time.
Yeah.
Okay, Heidi. We'd like to see that. So yeah, you put in the order, right, Jeff? So you should have your... No, not yet?
Not yet.
Okay. That's, well, once you do, the Pico will be there very quickly, so...
Yeah.
Well, if you don't mind shipping it from where? Somewhere in Europe, you can have an Alpha.
There's someone second-hand, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Andy.
So last week we talked a little bit about virtual instruments, and that some of them are very good. And do they play as well as the native virtual instrument, the Eigenharp?
You have to find them. That's the first thing. You have to find those. They kind of feel nice, but then you also often have to kind of set them up so that they... I think we already touched about that. Basically turn off a lot of things that happen automatically.
Oh, yeah.
And then hook up the expression parameters to whatever is appropriate in that particular instrument.
I see, and that's through the interface that that particular virtual instrument gives you.
Yes, or no, there's this one general interface that's the mapping matrix, we call them, where you can actually map performance parameters. I don't know if you've seen that before. I'll paste the address instead of screen sharing it. Let me just go to the wiki. No, the routing matrix. Sorry, there you go. So this is basically a grid. It offers you two ways of interacting with other virtual instruments. One way is through host automation parameters, which is, if you scroll down a bit, you will see a tab called plugin parameters. And these tie in directly into the instrument, and they are high resolution. So they're not limited to MIDI, which is very interesting. And then the other tabs are MIDI mappings. So what happens is you can see the... do you see this? Are you on the website, Jeff?
No.
No. Okay.
How do I get on the website?
Do you see the link to the left side?
Yeah.
If you click on it? Just right-click on it, I think, and then open in a new window. And be sure to have it in a new window. I don't know what happens if you just click on it. Let's try. Yeah.
I can tell you.
Opens a tab. Yeah.
It does in Chrome. I'm not sure it does in Safari, and God knows what it does in Internet Explorer.
I'd right-click and open a new window. And then,
yeah. Okay, I've got it.
Yeah. So if you scroll down a bit, you'll see this matrix, this grid, basically, right? And there are so you can see plugin parameters, MIDI CC messages, MIDI behavior, right? So those basically subdivide the way you can map things together. And horizontally, you see the different performance aspects of the Eigenharp, which is the strip, breath, key pressure, key roll, key yaw, absolute strip. And you can tie those to what is present in the matrix on the left side, which in the first tab, the plugin parameters will be specific for each plugin. So those names will update based on the host automation parameters of the plugins. But if you are on the MIDI CC messages tab, you will see there all the MIDI CC messages. And then the third tab is not specific MIDI CC messages, but stuff like polypressure, aftertouch, things like that, pitch bend. And so you use that then to actually tie the Eigenharp expression performances data to whatever the plugin accepts. So that's...
And you'll only know by experimentation.
Well, you kind of start getting into a habit of doing things a certain way. Usually, I usually use the yaw to some kind of a filter thing or modulation or change the sound a little bit, not dramatically, but a little bit. Pressure is often something related with either attack or with volume or velocity or something like that. But then Dragica might do something totally different and paint the wall in green when you press the key to the left.
Well, but also many of the plugins expose the parameter name, which is helpful. So you're not working completely in the dark.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, a good example is Alchemy.
Yeah, I think this is actually Alchemy to the left. In that matrix.
Yeah, it could be. And the point is, Alchemy has a couple of XY pads, which are great to attach to pitch or yaw or some combination of.
You can see that in row 8, 9, 10, 11, Jeff. It says XY pad 1X, XY pad 1Y.
Right.
And those
Yeah,
are
so the
basically-
patches are already programmed to respond to those.
Oh,
Alchemy programs are set up to listen to that and do some interesting things.
wow.
Some stuff just works. You have, I mean, it's much more fun if you do your own things. I don't know Pianotech or something like this, but in Omnisphere or also in Alchemy, oftentimes you can work with the stuff that's already there. Because Jaw is normally I think it's Jaw is normally on Modwheel, and
Yes.
Modwheel normally does something.
Yes.
And things like Zebralet has some special patches for Modwheel and Aftertouch. So if you just put Jaw on Modwheel, I think roll on pitch and Aftertouch, then it does some interesting things without you having to do a lot. I mean, it's some small tweaks, and then you can start from there. So starting is just easy, and then the problem is that you don't want to stay like this. We all do this stuff because actually we want to.
Oh, that's only the geeks amongst us.
And then
Some of
last
us
week,
actually stop and play the thing from time to time.
right. And then last week you were also talking about how just trying to save what you construct can be very problematic if certain aspects of the configuration don't save.
I figured out what my problem was. It was an installation problem with Omnisphere. There's Omnisphere is constructed in such a way, so it's a synth, but it's a synth that has about 35 gigabytes of samples. So you have to have a lot of room for that. And you have an option to put that on an external hard drive if you want, or a folder somewhere. And that has changed over the years, the way that worked. It used to be that you couldn't change it, and then you could use a trick to do that with creating a links in your operating system towards that sample directory. But then they created an official way, and I was still doing it the old way, and basically it kind of got itself in a mess. And once I kind of restarted this from scratch and did it their way, now I'm able to save without any problems, and so yes, but I think that's a problem. It's kind of you have to the balance between power and flexibility and convenience. If you buy a hardware synth that does one thing and it does that, then it will do that, and it will do that exactly the way it's always done it. But then that's the only thing it does. If you work with a computer and virtual instruments, and then there's always this risk of having run into stability problems because something has upgraded, something else hasn't upgraded. But then you get the option of using whatever you want and exploring and going into directions that you feel comfortable with, and reusing the same hardware and just investing into what actually makes a sound instead of buying hardware over and over again.
Yeah, it's always they can't test everything with everything. It's just not possible. So there is always the risk. I still think if you have solved your Omnisphere problem, I still think my problem with the Omnisphere stuff coming from live, not from EigenD. So it's always, if you use 3 or 4 programs together who never were tested together, I think it actually works great. I mean, for that nobody could test that, or that nobody, I mean, it just works.
Yeah.
In most cases. Sometimes it doesn't, so you have to look a little bit, but it's okay. I mean, it's like buying stuff in, if you buy hardware and you buy screws and you buy the wrong stuff, they don't match. So it's nobody tested, but it still works. So it's actually quite good. Yeah, but sometimes you have problems.
The basic thing is that test it before you use it on stage. That's never upgrade the day
and
before.
make a checklist.
Make a checklist.
It's also, if it's software, it's worth downloading the demo too.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
It's something that's a very nice thing to have. to actually be able to try out a product without actually having to buy it.
Well, like that swingy guitar or squeegee guitar, whatever it was, somebody was...
Spicy guitar?
Yeah, that one.
That's a free one. It's a free plugin.
Yeah, it also doesn't work.
I got it to work at one point. I remember trying it out, and it sounded like crap. But
okay. Mine wouldn't even load.
Really?
But I think it's a Lion thing.
That's possible. I was still on Snow Leopard when I tried that. Yes, well, that's the thing with, there is this, that's the real problem with VSTs and audio units, right? Is that people pretend they're a standard, but they're not. Because go ahead, go and find the specification of audio units, how you should write them. It's impossible to find. Because the specification is basically, if it works in Logic, then it's an audio unit. So that's...
Yeah.
That's the way, and VSTs are not. There's a little bit more, but still, it's like if it works with with Cubase, then it's a good VST. But not everything is documented as a standard should be, which means that people just do whatever, and there are a whole bunch of things that don't work if it's not in Cubase or not in Logic, and you can find a whole bunch of hosts like that, like. Reaper, for example, which is a great DAW, has problems with loading a whole bunch of VST and audio unit plugins because the way that they're actually hosting them doesn't correspond to what Cubase or Logic does. And then there is a whole threads on the Reaper forums, people saying, how do you get this to work and how do you get that to work? Basically because the standard isn't good enough.
Yeah, I've looked to the whole Apple documentation on this stuff, and finding stuff on audio units is really hard.
There's nothing. There's one example. There's one example.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? There's a whole industry built on one code example. That's it. That's the documentation.
Yeah, and it's not easy to find.
No.
I needed a long time until I got it, because it's not like, here you have the example. It's like, let's find an example, and then you have to look for it, and it's, yeah.
And there is a bunch of reference documents that are somewhere, which aren't that useful, but it's a problem. So
and for that, it still works.
It's amazing that it actually still works. That things work like so yeah, you will run into that, but we've got it's something very things are very stupid. It's like. We ran into a whole bunch of problems, for example, because some plugins expect you to render their GUI while they're actually doing audio processing, while we at times stopped rendering the GUI to save on processing power and things like that. There's this whole sequence of things that has to be set up exactly. It's never specified nowhere, but since Logic does it like that and Cubase does it like that, everyone expects it to be like that, but it's written down nowhere, and you can't go look in Logic or in Cubase to see how it's done. So we've ironed out a lot of incompatibility problems like that, just people saying, hey, this doesn't work, and then have to go in and figure out why it doesn't work. It's sometimes very, very difficult. For some of the plugins, I've actually had to write to the plugin author and ask them, can you help me? Because I have no idea why this doesn't work. I don't see anything wrong. And sometimes it's been on both sides that we had to make changes, or either one of them. So, but we've gotten very stable in that regard, I think, now.
So does someone get a prize for the first rig that gets posted on the Eigenharp website?
Yeah, they get it fixed.
They get it fixed. But there's nothing up there yet.
No, because EigenD 2 is still in the experimental phase. So basically, everything you build now will be broken in a couple of weeks. So, which is experimental. If you want to dive in, go ahead, but it will not continue to work. So, yeah, we're doing a whole bunch of things again. We've gonna like it.
Oh. And when will EigenD2 be functional and out there?
Well, it's functional and out there, just not stable.
Stable. But when will people be using it?
People are using it. I use it.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's it just anything you set up in your setups we will not go through the effort to upgrade them until it's in its testing release. So so actually, to be kind of blunt about it, it will always continue working because you will still have the version that you're using at this time. So that version will not disappear. Anything you do with it will continue working with that version while it stays experimental. And once it goes into testing, then we start doing automated upgrades in case we make incompatible changes. But in general, we don't make any big changes anymore once it goes to testing. But that is planned to happen as soon as possible now. Not many major things left to do.
So months rather than years.
Probably
Hopefully
actually,
weeks rather than months.
Weeks rather than months, actually. Yeah. No, I think we're probably one intermediate release away from testing, and probably going to do one this week. So it's not going to be that far off.
And you think that after that happens, then we'll start seeing rigs posted to the Eigenharp website.
Yeah, definitely. No, not rigs. Rigs will be in 2.1, not in 2.0. So rigs are already in here, but the easy way of sharing them will be in 2.1. So you can already build them, but not easily take them out there and just have the rigs being posted on the website. But all the infrastructure is there for that. We just have to. We'd like to get something out before that. Otherwise, it's going to be a few months before we get into stable, which is a bit pity.
And when does 2.1 come out?
A few months.
Oh.
Yes. No, we're going to go quite quickly about it now. It's quite a nice roadmap ahead.
So how many Eigenharps are being used in the world? How many people have them? Alphas?
Alphas?
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I can tell, actually. I don't know what I can say and what I can't say.
15.
Well, certainly, the last time John was on, he made the point that mid last year there were 1,000 in total sold.
Oh.
It's in between, in total, not alphas, but total Eigenharps, it's over 1,000 and underneath 2,000.
Gee whiz. Boy.
So it's much more than people actually expect.
Well, and much more than similar instruments at the same point in their lives.
Yes. Yes.
Or, for that matter, anywhere in their life, if you look at things like Continuum.
Yes.
Continui?
Continuum. Yeah, probably.
Possibly even Keytars.
Hey, Randy. We can hear some noise, but not sure if it's your microphone. So, yeah, it's a good point, Mike. It was actually, did you guys see that article that was posted, the Atlanta Chronicle or something?
Yeah, very strange.
About new musical instrument thing?
Yeah, I think I cycled that on Google+.
Yeah.
I missed that. What was it about?
About the adoption of new musical instruments and the difficulties and this nice interesting tidbit that actually Adolf Sachs seems to have had 2 or 3 assassination attempts from competitors.
Yeah.
2 assassination attempts.
Maybe Devon is a good choice.
Yes, I told John exactly the same thing. You picked the right area to go live. Yeah, and he went bankrupt 3 times, I think, and Belgian government aided him.
Yeah.
Oh, is that a case, Randy? All trumpet players? I suppose the trumpet players are enemies of saxophone players, right? Or the other way around.
Oh, I guess they were being done out of work. Oh, by the way, I did post the link to the Google musical thing.
Oh, right, yeah. Yeah, well, actually, I circled it. I circled it. I'm going to look at it in detail. It would be cool to have something... Yeah, no, that's going to be difficult again, right? Playing together online is not going to be...
I'm not sure that's what they're up to. Have a read at it, and I'm not sure they're actually looking for distributed stuff.
Mm.
And I'm not sure we can do it. I mean, Matt is still working at that, and they've made a little bit of progress, but not much in the general music hangout on Sundays.
Yes.
But it would be interesting to see if we could mount something for it.
Yes.
If we only strong arm somebody to participate from our midst,
or everyone.
Yeah.
Individually.
Yeah.
That would be good. It's like 3 guitar players and 10 Eigenharp players. Like, what the fuck is that instrument?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Dragica, how are you getting on with? Have you continued coding a little bit, or didn't have time?
I tried, but last week I had to go to Berlin again. So it's always coming something in between, but I'm trying.
Yeah, I know.
I have some ideas I desperately want to get working, but I found out that coding is a lot like maybe music or something else. If you don't do it for a while, you start losing it.
Mm-mm.
I'm not as sharp as I was. That's going, yeah. So I'm a little bit fighting with the Python stuff.
Yes, well, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's I stopped. I took a little break as a programmer about, when was that? 5 years ago, I think. I took like 6 months out, just no computers, nothing. And when I got back, I was like, I can't remember anything. So how do you do that again? And what's this? And so I felt that it's quite scary, actually, if you think about it.
Yeah.
It's afraid of going on vacation. You never know.
Yeah. At the moment, I'm a little bit fighting with the Python, C++, and the crosslinks, and somehow I don't get it to work. But
yes.
Yeah, we'll see.
Just a little bit of perseverance, and it will get back. It took after this 6 months of sabbatical, basically, it took me 2 to 3 months before I was back in the game.
Yeah, it doesn't take 6 months. I went away for 6 weeks one time, and the day I returned, the guys I worked with had scheduled a presentation that we did to outside companies fairly regularly, and the guy said, "Oh, I'll do it. You don't need to do it on your first day back." I said, "Oh, I wrote the damn presentation." So I get to the meeting, put the first slide up, look at it, and realize I have no idea what this presentation is about. So I just looked at him and said, "So I'd like to introduce my partner in crime here," and he did the presentation. It was just hopeless. Very embarrassing.
Yes. It's strange.
I'm going to stick another link up. I've posted this on Google a couple of times, but it is just a great resource.
Yes.
They got tons of sheet music, and it transposes.
Yes. No, but thanks a lot for that link. I've been looking through it. It looks great. So you can freely contribute there, right? This is something where you can it's a nice idea.
And they claim it's legal, but I'm not sure how they organize their payment scheme.
So it's not free? You have to pay for it somehow?
No, it's free to use, but they somehow claim to compensate artists. I'm not sure how. I didn't really look too closely at it. I just took comfort that they assured me of that and then moved on.
Yeah, I'm not going to read through that now. But it did look like a good idea.
Well, the thing that I like about it is the ability to transpose, because if you're looking for something you can play in a major key, like on the Eigenharp, it's really easy to just sift through and find a couple, transpose it into C, and then transpose it back on the harp. It makes it absolutely trivial to play.
Yep. But they do that on almost all of those guitar tablature sites. You're able to transpose also now, which I use for the chords quite a lot. Just playing from chords, not lead sheets. So it's an interesting discussion on the forums about notation, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's a kind of, lost a bit of steam over the last few days, but I think it's starting to go in circles and roundabouts.
Well, I think it's because there's several different use cases.
Yes.
And that are all sort of being discussed at the same time.
Yes.
So, we're sort of having this vehement agreement. Like somebody will put forth something and say, well, this is good for this reason. Everybody goes, yes. But this is good for this reason. Everybody goes, yes. And then somebody says, so which should we do? Well, both.
It's true. It's actually that. So, yeah.
I must say the one that you stuck up, I can actually use as opposed to a reference, like play from. And it's my own limitation. The ones that have systems of staves, if that's that, I can't deal with that. It doesn't work for me.
Well, you can, if you've got suggestions about it, because this was just
no, I don't have any suggestions.
And I think this is something that will probably have to dynamically grow when people use it. Because one of the things that I really did find was when I read through them on the forums, were like, I'm not sure. And then I said I have to sit down with my instrument and actually do it both ways. Read from it and write something that I'm playing. And then you start to have a totally different perspective, because there's a whole bunch of things that come into play there. Like you don't want to spend 10 seconds each time to find where your finger is. Okay, is this 16 or 17? Or which finger am I playing with? Which hand is it? How many symbols do I have to write something down? Do you have to start drawing a whole picture, or just write down 2 numbers? These things kind of get in the way of being productive or not.
Well, and there's an issue of background too. Like clearly, systems of staves provide information that is useful to a huge community of people who have used systems of staves to gain that information, like on intervals, for their entire musical life. I haven't. So in fact, when I'm presented with it, it's like, what am I looking for again? And I have to go through that processing. It's a background thing. It doesn't say anything about the actual
because
notation.
Interestingly, though, the thing that I posted, they're dots, but they're actually staves.
Yes, I know.
So it is actually that, but it just looks different.
Yeah.
And you could actually just write, you could use regular staves to just write the numbers on instead of using dots. So, yes, but I think I will start making some modifications to that Python agent that I wrote, getting it do something that resembles a little bit what I was working on. It's interesting because what Ferdinand last posted, the annotations on an existing lead sheet, I think that was exactly what I started with from the beginning. It's strange how things kind of go. He starts from one way and he ends up where I started months ago, and I'm kind of going more to where he was. And
but you're right; it'll eventually sort itself out.
Yeah. I think a good point, though, is also to be able to try to do it in existing software, like Musescore or Sibelius or Cubase or Logic. If you can reuse an existing software, then quite a bit of the work is already done. It might not be optimal, but it will not be that much work to actually make it nicely integrated also. So.
Well, ultimately, it comes out to a classic Minimax.
I've seen that. Sorry?
Yeah, you just cut out.
I've seen that WikiFonia uses MusicXML.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, this is interesting insofar as MusicXML could be probably somewhere down the line be integrated in an agent. If you have something that's using a notation that's human readable and is open, it can be built in somewhere sometimes if somebody has a. So that would be good if this would be given, so that the format is free or open or at least has a standard.
Yes, biggest problem is the standard flexible enough to do what we need? Until now, I've always found something that didn't work. So, have you looked at MusicXML, Dragica?
I have. It's quite interesting. It's I think it's hard to read. I don't know. I looked at it and I tried to get it to find out how it's working. It has some. I think it has some restrictions which I don't like. But it's XML, so at least it's you can look at it.
Yes, but you can't read it.
Yeah.
That's the point about XML, right? It's you can look at it, but no human can actually read from it.
Yeah, I mean it's you need if you have one of the nice XML editors, it's better because you then see the groups.
Yes.
Yeah, but I'm not really a fan of MusicXML, but just I think it's important that, or I think it would be nice if it would be something like this where it's more or less open and you can have the specification and you can integrate it somewhere else.
Definitely.
But I'm no expert in it.
I think there is no one that's a real expert in terms of notation for the Eigenharp. I think we're all very total Luddites there. How do you say this? Luddites?
But if you...
But it's Luddites, I suppose.
There's a couple of links for MusicXML, including the reference. The last one, the one at Recordair, has all the reference in spec.
Hang on.
I can't contribute much, but I can Google stuff.
Yeah. No, I looked at it, but I think there is, I mean, as Gerd said, there's no expert on notation on Eigenharp, but I think there is even no expert on notation in general. If you look at MusicXML and the other stuff, you see that they have huge problems. Eigenharp or no Eigenharp.
So was that someone's doorbell? It sounds exactly like my doorbell. Because I heard the doorbell.
Oh, you know what? It's probably my clock.
Okay, well, your clock sounds like my doorbell.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Oh, we know how to get rid of you. We just play the Big Ben chime. Westminster.
Okay, but that being said, I do have to go, though.
Yeah, it's time, I guess.
Yes. This one.
Nice to see you all again.
Yeah, this one. Bye very quickly.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye.